Hi everyone, welcome to your next normal. I'm your host, Sister Jenna. I'm so zenned out in the studio today because I have my wonderful brother who's visiting us from Pennsylvania, Swamiji. And we met actually a few months ago in upstate New York at the Peace Village Learning and Retreat Center, where he was kind enough to participate in our Illuminating the Light fashion show that we presented for the Paris Game Olympics of 2024. So rooted in the Vedas, he travels around the world to inspire people to be just a better version of themselves. We want so many more people like this in our lives, but he has such an interesting story, almost a little bit similar like your sister Jenna. This soul has done it all, but he got the awakening. He got the awakening. And with this awakening, he's now uplifting and enhancing the lives of so many at his ashram in Pennsylvania. So I want to welcome you to our next normal studio. And thank you for giving me this time.
Oh, you're very welcome. Happy to be here.
To share the space. So you and I kind of have similar stories. Like, we're not fully saints before we became a saint.
No.
Tell us a little bit about, your journey before your awakening.
I was born in Africa as an immigrant kid growing up, and my father was the president of our Hindu community, and I was asking a lot of spiritual questions when I was young, and I began to realize that a lot of religions actually divided humanity, which bothered me a great deal. The other thing that bothered me tremendously was that we're using the name of God to kill another human being.
So then, that one.
So I started studying a lot of different religions, and fortunately I had that ability and access to different priests and different authorities. And I think I was 13 when I decided that all religions say the same thing, so I became agnostic. And I pretty much focused on science, and I came to the US and got 2 engineering degrees, and then wanted to be in the business world and really wanted to get into the world and help society through the business world, because when you empower people with money, with jobs, then when people can sustain themselves, they do good.
Yeah, of course.
And so I kind of got my master's in international business, and then
did you do that in the U.S. or
Yeah.
you did? Okay, great.
So the 2 degrees, bachelor's was in Washington D.C. That's why I know this area really well. And then I did the international business in Phoenix, Arizona.
Okay, I see.
And after that, I started a company with a friend of mine to sell computers around the world, but I thought I'd do the reverse brain drain. And so I went back to Tanzania, where my family was based, and started doing that. But then quickly I realized that people were not ready for computers. And this is, we're talking about the early 90s.
Yes, I was going to ask you, how old were you then?
I was 30 at that point.
Yeah. Okay. So you were still in the midst of your hustle.
And saving the world,
Yeah.
And I did that part. I got into international development, private sector development. I've been involved with 42 companies, and I realized something was wrong with that whole scenario, because the donors and the recipient of donors became sort of an incestuous relationship. And so I got out of the international development world, and then got into Greek philosophy and Greek astrology. And
have you been to Greece?
Athens airport, that doesn't count. No, I have been.
Almost. The airport is a little bit very historic, I have to tell you.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
No, I did actually go to Greece. I was in an island, one of the islands there. I did spend about a week.
Yeah, beautiful country.
Yeah.
Beautiful country.
So I just remembered that I had been there. And once I got to the Greek philosophy and Greek astrology, I began to realize, wait a minute, a lot of this stuff is coming from India. And I still wasn't into the Indian stuff, because growing up, when I saw what my parents and what our community did, it was really not ethical, I would say. You know, there's a cultural aspect that's not very appealing, especially to a young mind. And when I came to the US, I said, look, this is more socialist, they care more about society and things like that. So, of course, now I look at the US world completely different than when I first came.
It's just entropy. Entropy, that's all it is.
Exactly. And so the idea was that if I get into the business world, I can help society better. And you know, generally, so that was my theme throughout my life, and the journey took me to different places, and I ended up with Greek philosophy, Greek astrology, and then the Vedas, and then I got invited to set up an institute to support the Vedas.
And you were still in your 30s by then?
Yeah, late 30s, and
30.
so I was doing that in California, doing really well, having the time of my life, but there was still an emptiness.
Sure.
And I was like, all these guys who claim to be experts, I was recognizing that something was missing. So then I said, what am I doing? And I needed, if I could get back in the real world, which was what I was contemplating, is that I give up all this nonprofit nonsense, as I would say then, and get back in the real world, make a lot of money, and then what?
Right? I had that same feeling.
Right.
No, really. And even in the so-called real world, how much more money can you make? You've got some guys right now in the world that are super, 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 super wealthy.
Right.
And yet there are people that are struggling so badly.
Exactly.
And they kind of wonder if you could help them in some way or the other.
Right.
So a lot of times, you know, you talk about the real world. And part of me always wishes that we could end suffering. But I also know everything is karmic.
Right.
As much as I don't like to see people suffering, it's karmic.
Right.
And karmically, here you are in your hustle. You're listening to folks. Some things are making sense. Some of it is just not making sense. There's something in you that's a call, even though you felt that there was a void. And you can feel like there's something more to all of this. Tell me, what was that moment before your awakening occurred?
Right. So I think you mentioned the word suffering.
Yeah.
So as a child, first it was the wars that bothered me. Then I looked around and I saw how people were suffering. And then I looked at individuals suffering. And then the point was, are we born to just suffer? Of course, some people don't seem to be suffering, but everyone I saw, whether they had money, whether they were politicians, whether they were famous, everybody seems to suffer. So the question became, are we born to suffer? And that was the driving motivation that kind of kept me moving from place to place. And I didn't find answers. I found a lot of statements that didn't really align with, didn't satisfy my curiosity. And it was only when I met my guru, his Swami Dayananda, and he's based in Pennsylvania. He passed away in 2015. But he was teaching the Vedas, and particularly the end of the Vedas is what we call Vedanta. And the way he presented it, or the way he would teach the Vedas, was something that I resonated with. And so I embarked on that study of the Vedas because I needed to see the scriptures. One of the biggest challenges I had personally was I hear somebody say something, a guru or even my guru. But how do I know what he's saying is right?
Yeah. Is there a right?
It's right if it answers your question.
Yeah, for you.
For you.
Yeah.
But I have an engineering background, so for me it's like, show it to me. I need to see it, and it was one thing for my guru to say something, but it was another to have actual scriptures that reveal this information. So, for instance, when I studied the Vedas, one thing that was mind-boggling for me was that it revealed existence, this existence, and the universal existence. We call it Sanatana Dharma, which means everlasting Dharma, And And in order to study this way, which is what my mind needed,
Yeah.
was to study the scriptures in its original form. So you see the scriptures, you understand the words in Sanskrit, and you understand what the teaching says, not what my guru says. My guru would reveal what the teaching says, but I had to actually understand what the words are saying.
Right.
And in fact, my guru, the way we teach it, we don't teach, like, I don't present what I think. I present what the scriptures say, and you get to see and read the scriptures yourself so that you understand too, and you form your own opinion
Right.
based on that. So that's the format of the ancient Vedic teaching,
Right.
which is what I studied. And that finally
That
answered my
opened
question.
you up. You know, I think for so many of us, we will find our awakening or that aha moment,
Right,
that light bulb goes on,
yeah.
whether it's through Hinduism, Islam, Judaism, Buddhism. There is something about the soul's inner language and the soul's inner dharma or karma that it's traveling with, that it will resonate through you, it'll resonate through your
Right.
Swami, it'll resonate through maybe Mother Teresa, it'll resonate through someone else. And one of the things that I've noticed is people tend to blame scriptures, they blame religions, they will blame the religious prophet or gurus
Right.
for being crooks, lies. They don't do anything for the world. Muslims are better, Christians are better, Jews are better. You and I both know it's an individual interpretation. How could you rest people's indifference to just realizing that everyone's on their journey and every religion was actually positioned to amplify your love and respect for the self so that you can convey it to others? Because I still meet folks who are like, oh, you Brahma Kumaris, oh, these Muslims, oh, these Jews. And I just sit back and I go, okay, we all have to choose our path and we all get awakened and have to sustain our awakening. It is an interior interpretation. And even, let's say, if a guru judges a Brahma Kumari or if a Muslim judges a Christian, they've also just closed their scripture. They've lost their way. Speak to that for me. How do we break that?
One of the things I began to appreciate because of the scriptures, which I didn't get from the Hindu leaders or the Hindu gurus, is that the scriptures talk about the oneness of us all. So here's the premise. Vedanta teaches us that we're all one, right? If we're all one, how can one thing be separate from the other, right? If I say my way is right, then there's no oneness anymore, right? If I say you are an enemy or you are evil, I've already separated you from me. So the oneness is really driven by love as an expression of that oneness. Yeah. Now, when I began to understand more and more what the scriptures are revealing, because the scriptures are not one man's opinion, they're revealing how this existence is. Okay, and the existence is one, and we're just all different forms of the same one thing. When you begin to see that, automatically one of the byproducts of this teaching is that you feel a natural love for everybody. Secondly, there's
that is so true.
Yeah, and one of the other things that my guru used to say, which he termed as coin, which was brilliant, he says there's that inner leisure that you develop. What that inner leisure is all about is compassion. Yeah, see, so everybody is on their journey, right? It's like every river ends up in the ocean. You can't say that this river is better than that river. So all these different paths are basically useful for the person who's in that journey, because that's exactly what they need at that time. Yeah. Not many people can come to the way I went through it. Like for instance, I needed to really understand technically.
What was going on?
Yeah, you say if we're all one, prove it. Okay. And there is a proof.
Yeah, yeah. You know, each of us have something, because for me it was service.
Right.
I want to help people.
Right.
And so whatever it is that is like a trigger in you,
Right.
once whatever the path is, it opens you up, then comes the sustenance of
Right.
your awakening.
Right.
What have you been doing to sustain your awakening so far?
So once you understand and I would say see, not with the eyes, you see it with your mind. Once you see that we're all one, it's not easy to live that way, to have that vision. But when you know it really well, then what's one of the things that happens automatically is your perspective towards everything changes.
So true.
And once that changes, then you can't go backwards.
True.
Like, I use this example a lot of the times. For instance, in the 60s here, there was racism, and there is still racism. But once you transcend that and you grow up and you see that, hey, you know, a person who's brown is not any different than I am. I'm a human being. That person is a human being. That's life. You look at pets the same way, with same love and concern, because they are being on this earth just like I am. You cannot unwind that.
Yeah.
You can, once you are a racist and then you change and evolve and become a non-racist, you cannot go back to racism.
Yeah. It doesn't
Because-
make sense.
Yeah, because you have changed unless you are giving lip service. So that's core, is having the core principle that yes, we're one. Then the second part is to sustain that, is to actually live it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it becomes who you are. You don't now try to do anything else because now it's part of you. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now sometimes there are of course temptations and there are other people because it's really hard.
Sure.
But once you know who you truly are, and once you see what you see, you cannot unsee it.
Yeah, yeah, give yourself time. I think one of the things many people misunderstand about the cloth, the hair, whatever it might be, is, might be for me, I don't know if it's the same for you, but when you come into the awakening, you are able to discern, you're able to really see what your weaknesses are.
Yeah.
So it's not that the moment you're in your awakening, you're perfect. But there is something that triggers in you, which is something very deeply mystical. And you feel a sense of responsibility in keeping it alive. And if you don't know really where it will go, but you might end up being what you were before the awakening.
Right.
And so I think it's just knowing what your challenges or your limits are, and using enough spiritual intelligence to overcome them.
Right.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Be the same?
So I like the term you used of spiritual intelligence,
Yeah.
because that is what helps us police our behavior. You find, for instance, in the ancient times, when gurus who studied and understood how existence works, then you know that if I do any harm, that harm comes back. Okay, it's pure karma, right? And when you understand that there's no choice, you cannot bribe anyone. You cannot blackmail anyone. It's like if you do harm on this earth, and when we talk about harm, we talk about harm to other human beings, animals, plant life, and the planet. So for instance, we take a vow. We don't take a vow of celibacy, but what we do is take a vow of ahimsa, which means non-hurting.
Right.
So this is based on the fact that when we do anything, any harm, that harm comes back to me. So what happens is, because your understanding of this universal principle of dharma, of karma, then you start behaving in a way that you do not create harm.
Right, right.
Yeah, and so you live according to this principle. Now, other people might do it. That's their karma.
Yeah.
That's their business. They own that. So our journey is to really police our own behavior, our own mindset, how we conduct ourselves with everybody.
Right.
And also ultimately, how do I conduct myself with me?
Yeah, absolutely.
Because we forget about me.
Yeah, especially when you're on the field of serving in your
Right.
huge ashram in Pennsylvania.
Right.
Yeah.
So, so that becomes a critical factor of monitoring others. So we don't really worry about so much about what others do. You worry about you.
Focus on you, right? Well, that's what we need to do. I mean, and there are two ways of looking at that.
Right.
Sometimes we can end up to be a society of people that are so self-focused that we become super selfish.
Right.
And when it is a spiritual care, when you are focusing on your interior care, it's selfless.
Right.
And so even though you're taking care of yourself, everyone around you benefits. Now I want to kind of go into kind of a harsh conversation before we move into the meditation type. Nowadays you hear people, I've heard it, people will say spiritual people or religious people, they talk about leaders who have their own planes, they're wearing their Rolex watches and driving Rolls Royce, and that, you know, now they might be questioning gurus and their role of spiritual leadership and their way of being. Even gurus will challenge sometimes the Brahma Kumaris, you might not be this, you're not that, and sometimes it can be very harsh. So the point that I'm asking is, what do you tell our viewers watching who tend to sometimes reach a point of skepticism? Because for me, honestly, Swamiji, my awakening was not a plan. It happened.
Right.
And as a result of it happening, I really felt compelled to be of service. And then while I'm on the path of service, I'm bumping into myself. And I'm having to find enough courage to bypass her and continue to be the best that I can, knowing that my destination, by staying honest with myself, I'll get there. I will be a beautiful instrument for God, whether you want it or not. It's going to happen, right? So what do you tell to people who have reached this skeptical part of maybe just being with a Swami or a Brahma Kumari or somebody who just wants to be of service because they're really serving themselves? Because they're, you know, skepticism locks the door of learning, right? So what would you tell them?
Well, there's two sides of that.
Yeah.
There is the side that you're talking about where they are really sincere devotees or sincere, committed people that serve others. I think the Brahma Kumaris does a really great job for that. They provide a platform where people can come in and serve that way. I also find one thing really fascinating with the Brahma Kumaris is there's a tremendous expression of love and care, which is seriously lacking in the world. So, you know, I remember when I came to the event, that was my first event
in Peace Village.
In Peace Village, and that was my first exposure to Brahma Kumaris. And, you know, one thing that fascinated me was that everybody was happy.
Yeah.
You know, and that's a great thing.
Yeah.
You can't start your spiritual journey if you're unhappy. That's where everybody is. It's the struggles that brings them to a place. I also realized, because when I studied initially in the beginning, I became judgmental, like this is right and that is wrong. And the question then becomes, why is everyone not doing what I'm doing? Yeah. And over a period of time, and I learned this from my guru also, he was such a compassionate person that he allowed people to express themselves in their way that they are comfortable with. And when you go back to Hinduism and look at the core principles of Hinduism, Hindus are, and India, if you call it that, were the first ones that opened the land for everybody. So it doesn't matter how you practice or what you practice.
Can I pause you right there?
Yeah.
How beautiful. When you go back to Hinduism or you go back to Bharat, India, it opened up the gateway or the door for everyone to come in and practice. And I have to say, because you've seen that in the BK, that's what we do. Whether you're Hindu, atheist, black, white, tall, short, come and learn how to meditate and find your inner peace and improvement.
Right.
And so even when people question that, you're like, why don't you want to be improved? What's the problem?
Right.
You know, so go back and that's so beautiful. So when souls look at you and they sometimes might have question marks, you know, what is it that maybe you'd like them to know?
Well, I've reached a point in my life where it doesn't matter what they think, because they do think a lot of things.
Yeah, we all do.
But then if they do ask, you know, I don't go out, which was what I did before when I finished the course, and you know, I had this sort of missionary zeal where I wanted to share what I know with everybody. And over the years, I began to realize, you know, you can't shove this. You can take a horse to the well and can't make that horse drink, right?
Yeah.
And I said, you know, people are where they are, and that's their journey. You appreciate that journey. If they ask for help, help them.
Yeah.
To the extent where they can. A child wants food. You don't give it a steak, you know.
Yeah.
You give it baby food.
Yeah.
So based on the questions that they ask, you see where they're coming from, and you just share. Now, if somebody says, why are you wearing this? Why are you looking so weird? Because actually, it's really hard to walk through airports dressed this way. And you get these glares, you know, which wasn't the case before, but every time I go through the airport dressed this way, you know, you get scared. And you see that, you know, somebody will just call the ICE or call the home security and say, oh, we have a terrorist. And, you know, you get that looks. I get those looks. But I just let it be. And I'm confident with who I am.
Yes.
And as soon as I know who I am and what I am, and I'm there to help and guide, but they need to take the initiative to come to me with curiosity. If they do, I'm happy. It also depends how they come. If they come with an anger, with an ulterior motive, then it's different. So for instance, I was at the train station in Oakland, in California, and I had these two huge guys who were not friendly, and they asked me whether I was a Muslim. Now, obviously, I'm not a Muslim, I'm dressed this way. But I realized their intentions were not nice.
Sure.
I could have been stabbed or something. So I just walked away and tried to surround myself with people and say, no, I'm not. You know, I didn't lie to them. So gentleness really helps.
Yeah, yeah.
And the example I also give is like, you know, when a 5-year-old comes and insults you or punches you, what do? You just laugh, right?
Yeah.
You don't engage with a 5-year-old
They don't know any
and
better.
start fighting. Yeah. You know, I had a 5-year-old punch me one day and I'm like, okay, so what got you upset? I took his seat. I didn't know he was there. He considered it. Yeah. I said, okay, come have a seat.
You know, that is something that I would love us to end on. The importance of being non-judgmental.
Right.
And that I feel that if there really is an intimate, sincere, deep relationship with the source, you will automatically be very accepting of people and their way. Maybe the way that somebody is doing something, you're not comfortable with it, you don't know what it is, and you're cautious about their well-being. That's a normal emotion. So where does that lead you? Find out. You know, you can never judge a book by the cover. You got to go into the book to really figure it out.
That's right.
By the way, don't forget to get your Sophisticated Effect book.
Right, exactly.
But just give us a closing blessing and message for our humanity. Like, what do you wish for us to begin to see or practice?
So I'll break it down in two parts. One of the biggest things, if you just look at racism, look at the conditions today that we're in, it really boils down to ignorance. Racism is not something we're born with, as Mandela said. We learn to grow into it. We can grow out of it. And the way you do that is getting rid of ignorance. So the division, the anger, the evil, or the good, whatever you see, it's really based on ignorance. So the first part is trying to understand. So when you find someone or you're looking at that person and you're angry at that person or you're jealous or you're hating that person, for whatever reason, they might have said something or done something, know where you stand first then you try to understand where that person is coming from. If you can help them see you better and what your intentions are, don't go out of your way to do that because it doesn't work. But you try and hope that that person will be enlightened. Because the opposite of ignorance is enlightenment.
Yeah.
And even though you might not be able to say something or share something, or you might share something or you might do something, but they still don't get it, then you step back and pray for them.
Yeah.
A prayer always works. You pray for them, you move back. Today, I find the greatest evil is the media. And the media is putting out information that's trying to brainwash us. And we go into one camp or the other camp. And I think part of that, when I say you have to remove ignorance, is to also know what information to feed your body with. We're careful about what we put in our bodies when we eat. The same thing, we need to be careful what we put in our minds.
Right, yeah.
And so when you have spaces like this, where you learn to meditate and to understand how to share that, giving and contributing, learn to understand what peace is all about, what love is all about, that's fundamental.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, it's amazing to have spaces like this already around the world that's there.
Especially in these times.
Yeah. So you just show up.
Yeah.
So you got to show up.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure having you on the show.
Likewise.
Thanks.
It's a pleasure. Thank you
Thanks.
for inviting me and hosting me. And I really enjoy your spaces. This is the second space I've been to. And you guys do a really good job.
It's a blessing.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. Well, I hope everyone took some time to really absorb some of the thoughts shared from Swamiji. And again, at the end of the day, it's about your nature, your character, the way you are as a soul. I can pick out of it, just don't give sorrow and don't take it from anyone. At the end of the day, that's it, right? So let us take some time now and enjoy somebody who never gave sorrow to anyone. Our sweet Sister Gita. Here's the Sister Gita effect.
Curating a better self. It reads thus: let's do more house cleaning. Imagine how much better you would feel if you replaced bad habits with a deeper spiritual connection. Do you slow down enough to give others the time they deserve from you? Or does your mind and your body rush off to do other things? When we rush through our relationships with others, we miss the opportunity to connect with them and show them the respect they deserve. Authentic living, number 2, not listening. Do you really listen when others speak to you? Do you listen to yourself? Are you attentive to them when others speak to you? Are you attentive, or do your thoughts wander off while they are talking? Learn to stop and pay attention to others when they are speaking to you. They will feel valued, and you will benefit from truly hearing what they have to say. Number 3, one-upmanship. Many people don't even realize they do this, but others do. When someone tells you about an accomplishment or an achievement, good or bad, do you find yourself telling them about a bigger event from your own life? Learn to applaud others and encourage them. When your spirit is living honestly, you will find that you have nothing to prove. Everything you need to achieve fulfillment is within you. When you can do that, you will have developed control over your ego, and the need to brag or steal the spotlight evaporate. I like it. Ways to start feeling great, letting go, and laughter. Om Shanti.
All right, it's always so good to just get the words of wisdom from Sister Gita. And of course, on our screen, you'll be able to get some information on Swamiji's ashram in Pennsylvania. Please go and take a visit and spend some time and learn from him as well. We can learn from everyone. Even if you choose to keep yourself rooted in one specific ideology, good, fine. In addition to that, you can expand your ideology by learning from others. You won't lose anything. You might end up to be kinder and more loving. Thank you all so much for joining us on the next normal. Please take care of your mind. Please take care of each other. I'll see you again soon. Om Shanti.